do introductions for our presenter.
Well, good morning. Since I'm on the speaker committee and the only person on the speaker committee, I'm trying to reach out to different people, and Bill has graciously accepted the invite to come to the club and talk, and I asked him to talk about his natural beekeeping and what he does and different ideas and thoughts, and talk about spring management if he could. And he's going to give about an hour and a half presentation, and then take questions, and he has a presentation. And so let's give him a big round of applause for coming. And he can give his bio, he knows it better than I do. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Bill, do you want the light on or off?
If you can, yeah, if you can turn off the front row, I don't know. Yep. I don't want to stand in the dark either. I guess it doesn't matter. I have my chair here because I don't like to stand. So, I'm Bill Kaufman. I came from just the other side of Syracuse. It was about a 2.5 hour drive this morning. And I'm glad to be here. It was a beautiful drive this morning. No traffic. You know, I watched the sunrise in my rearview mirror the whole time. And I managed to pay attention to the front and got here safely. This is, let's see, I've been keeping bees, or I've been working the home repair business for 27 years. Been self-employed the whole time. And this is what really got me into doing what I do, is cutouts. Cutouts are just the removal of bees from a home. Been keeping bees for about 20 years, and probably about, I think, 8 years I've been doing, I don't know if this is my 8th year or my 9th year. I can't figure it out. Things run together about doing these cutouts. And during them, it's really a surgical process. I go in there and I have to take out, I open up the cavity where they are, and I remove every piece of comb and examine every piece of comb. I work with the state inspectors and do these things to make sure diseases aren't being spread, because I'll travel a couple hours from home regularly during the summer. And I do probably 20, 30 of these in a year, every year. CNY Beekeeping School, I started that when COVID hit. And I thought there was a real need for it. Started on Zoom meetings. I was able to get all the big names, like Randy Oliver, and I can't even, the names are slipping my mind. But they all came on for free, And then all of a sudden, everybody's doing Zoom meetings, and they figured out they could get a paycheck. So I gave up the Zoom meetings, and I just kept holding classes. And I got my master's certificate through Cornell. And that was just for the sheer purpose of saying, hey, I'm a master beekeeper, because I know people have been doing it less than me, no more than me, and I know people who have been doing it way longer than me and know nothing still. So, their master beekeeper is just a title. More about me is I got 4 kids. We try to get them involved. I got an 18-year-old graduated last year. And part of all this natural beekeeping is I believe we have a creator that is designed intelligently how these things work. And us as people, we have no clue of all the intricacies of what goes on. So there's always more to discover. What is a cutout? I just said that. Take bees out of a house. And again, it's cleaning up the cavity, it's examining everything they live in. There's more parts than just the comb. There's the comb, there's the cavity, there's the entrance, there's the stuff that lands on the bottom, there's the recycling of the hive and all the other critters and things that we really don't like in our hives, like wax moths and hive beetles and things like that. And that's what we can learn. We can figure out what they are and what can we do with it. We're going to learn what natural beekeeping is. Can everybody see this from the back? This is one of the coolest pieces of honeycomb best flavor honeycomb I've ever had. A lot of honeycomb, like if you make honeycomb, you know that fresh wax comb is very thin, very light, and it will, you know, as you eat the honeycomb, the wax will actually melt in your mouth, and it just good flavor. I like this stuff better. Like the older comb, it turns into like a gum, and you can chew it. And I think it's part of the experience of good honeycomb. This had Japanese knotweed on one side, and then some earlier summer honey on the other side. And that mixed combination was just amazing. And it had a nice gum chewiness afterwards, too, which I really liked. So there's experience with these cutouts. I never bring lunch. You know, they take all day, and I'm in it all day, and I eat well. I eat the pollen, and I've even eaten the brood. And it's fun. They all include a lift, because bees, you know, they like to build up 30 feet in the air. And by their choice, if they had an opportunity, that's where they go, every time. Sometimes really high. And that was, I don't even know why they wanted the bees out of there. So they're safe up there, they're doing good, and they're like, nope, we can't have them. I try to talk people into keeping their bees all the time. Honeybees in general, they do not do damage to a house. So if somebody's worried about them, they don't chew through wires, they don't chew through sheetrock, they don't do any of the damage associated with like wasps and hornets and things. This was last year. Midsummer maybe, I'm not sure when. But it was last year, and it was the biggest, most problematic cutout ever done. It took me 16 hours of straight work. So I opened up the cricket there on top of the roof, and the queen was right there. Grabbed her, threw her in a cage. I said, this is going to be a good day. And so the wood was rotted, the roof deck was rotted under that, and bees were in the attic. But that wasn't all. The top plate along the wall was rotted, and the bees were in the wall in the bedroom below. And then that cobblestone chimney, inside the wall, not all the rocks were there, so there's channels going into the chimney too. So I'm sitting there grabbing blindly into these holes, pulling out cones and stuff. Sometimes they take 20 minutes. Sometimes they take 16 hours.
Who pays for the lift?
Customer. Yeah, I don't charge for removing bees, I charge for the construction work.
You charge by the hour, like the 16-hour one?
No, I quote a job and I stick with my quote.
Okay.
So sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. But it all averages out. So I use an infrared camera. Bees keep their nest at 96 degrees all year long, so you can always find it. And sometimes if you look, like here, it's really hot. That's where the brood nest is. And typically, this is a hot day, so that the heat comes all the way down here. And you can see it in the roof right here. It comes right here. But you see the heat of the brood nest. You don't always see where the honey is, or the dried comb, or the other areas where the bees might be. In this case, they were also outside on the overhang of this little sunroom on the back. And there's some of them. There was a lot of, I got a pointer here. There we go. Right there on this side, there was a lot of dried comb. So at one point there was bees on this side, at one point there was bees on this side, and I get to see the progression of the colonies. Like they move in, they move out. Things break down, they rebuild. This was an easy one. And this is just, I just like this picture. And this brand new comb, they were there for 48 hours. That's what came out of it. To watch them move in, and they build awesome. Comb, 90% of the time in a feral colony is perfectly straight like that. And there's a reason for it. A lot of times you might see, you know, cross comb in your hive and things like that. I've got pictures of those coming up, we'll talk about there. There's 3 of my kids. That was this summer too. It's great to get them involved, but 5 minutes after this, they were in the truck saying, "It's time to go yet? Are we done yet? Can we go home yet? I'm hungry." There's another cool one. It's about 7 foot tall there. And I don't recommend doing cutouts to anybody unless you're familiar with the house. And this is a perfect example. We've got a bathroom vent pipe. This is the first floor bathroom vent pipe. Second floor sewage. We got electrical, and we got water pipes going through there. And if you don't know how to cut and there's another pipe over there.
And the Romex.
Yeah. You cut right into that, put a hole in the sewer pipe, who knows what. It's, could cost a lot of problems.
So for construction, did you have to get additional insurance because you're doing bee removal as well?
I have construction insurance
Yeah,
with, because I did home repairs first,
right.
so I do have construction insurance, and then what they call is a pest removal
Pest
rider.
Yeah.
This here, if you look right about here, you see a paper nest from hornet or wasp. So bees don't come in and start chewing away to make a house. So clearly, next picture here, they came in through that opening. So you can see where that vent pipe was removed. And you can see where the nice comb is. I removed a bunch of the bees already, and I got some tape on the outside so I don't get more bees leaving. Try to catch them, trap them. But so there's always a process in a hive. You get mice, they come in. They get wasps. The wasps will make an opening like this. If there's insulation, the mice come in and remove the insulation. It's always something else before the bees. And I tell the pest guys in my area, says, if there's a problem, close up the opening so nothing else comes in, and then you don't have to call me later. But nobody listens. Best preventative of honeybees is no way for them to get in. That's it. So natural beekeeping. I like this picture. They do this, I don't know where, across the ocean someplace. I always thought that'd be cool. I just don't want to climb trees. I don't like heights. Even though that's why I rent the lifts. I used to try to do it off ladders, and it just, my legs get too wobbly. Natural beekeeping is political. It's really treatment beekeeping, treatment-free beekeeping is political. It's like Democrats and Republicans these days, you know? You come in and, hey, I don't treat for bees. I did the Cornell Master Beekeeper. You said you did anybody else do the Cornell program? They are, if you don't treat for bees, we hate you and we don't like you and want you to go away. They really press for putting in, or, treat for mites. They really press for putting in treatments, chemicals in the hive to take care of the mites. And I wasn't like that. Then they also had Cornell also had this program, this 3-year program where they come out, they look into your hives, I forget what it's called. They look into your hives, they test for mites, they test for diseases, they test the wax for the
Wellness
chemicals.
program.
It was,
The wellness program.
yeah, they had a name for it though. Tech team.
Tech team.
That was it, the tech team. Yeah, so they tested my stuff for 3 years. Turns out my wax has the least amount of chemicals in the state. And the viruses were very low, except I had the highest mite loads. So, I don't know. And they always said, you gotta treat for mites. No, I can't do it. Just, I can't. I go to the other talks and lectures and things, and I walk out of there like, man, yeah, I gotta treat for mites because I'm gonna do so much better. Except, on the drive home, I changed my mind again. Something inside of me says I'm not supposed to do it, so. Definitely a treatment-free guy. And treatment-free is another definition that people have, which is they hate everybody too. is, oh, you're going in to treat for mites, we don't like you, you can't do that. Oh, you're going in to do a split, you can't do that either. Oh, you're doing a brood break, no, you can't do that either, that's a treatment. A split's a treatment, brood break's a treatment. Oh, you're going in there to take honey? I mean, I think all you can do is go lick the side of the hive. So natural beekeeping is in there, I think. So a lot of natural beekeeping. What I do, there's a lot of things I do that I have to do to keep my bees alive. And part of that is brood breaks. The big part of that, there's a guy in Michigan named Mel Deckelson. I can't remember pronouncing it right. He talks about on-the-spot queen rearing is a big thing. And he was a treatment-free guy, same growing zone as us here. And if you look him up, he's got this thing about split a hive, use one for honey production, do one for, or more, for bee production and survival. And that's what I do. So I'll split a colony, it'll be a brood break, and I'll start a new colony in, say, August, beginning in August, and then I don't touch it. Those bees stay alive for until this year. It's the first year queen, so she's less than a year old right now, and they seem to all survive. It's the bees that I force to stay in their hive that end up with higher mite loads, and ultimately it shortens their lifespan, so they die about now.
What was that guy's name that you were mentioning?
Mel Deckelson,
Okay,
something,
okay.
I don't know.
I'll find out who knows it.
Yeah, he's from Michigan, and he's got a book called On the Spot. It's the most expensive book that I paid for. It's about $75. But it's also all available on the internet. It's all free if you look up his name. If you want it all in a nice little binder, $75.
Okay.
You'll find it. So the tree is a big one. This guy had a colony in his tree, and he wanted it out. And he didn't want to take the tree down. Normally that's what I recommend. You take the tree down because the bees are coming back. So I'll give it a shot. And he says it worked. I filled it up with newspaper and a few other things to fill the cavity and close that up afterwards. Here's a tree hive. That's an open air hive. They don't survive around here. You see the big pictures from, I don't know if they're from Brazil or Africa or where. They got the mountain honey where the combs are this huge and they climb up there and look like they got depression and suicide watch or something because they go up there without the nets and crazy stuff. But there's another one. They're all in there. That's a semi-open hive because the tree's split completely wide open. They didn't survive in there either. It's just too much weather for them. They really need to be enclosed up there. I bring these home all the time. I work with tree guys. My wife hated me for that one. I put it right in the driveway. Of course, all my other stuff is there too. It's in front of the garage. And they cut it down, I put a roof on it, and I left it there for a little while, and then I ended up having to move it. But again, this is a lot how I get a lot of trees. I ended up opening them up. There's a lot to learn in there about the way the comb is produced inside of the tree, inside of the cavity of the tree, how they deal with the rot, how they deal with different other pests and protection. There's one split open. So there's always more space in the bottom of the colony. And if you look right here, you can kind of see like there's a line. Can't really see it over here, but there is. And down here, there's a lot of debris. There's always a lot of debris in the bottom of a colony. Or bottom of a hive. There's a distinction, hive, colony. The hive is the place they're living in. And there is always this depth of material in there that are rotting. I like to look at it like a forest. Like we've all seen pictures of almond groves, right? It's beautiful. Usually pictures are when they're in bloom and it's amazing. They're all in straight rows, but you don't see the rest of the year when there's nothing. There's no real grass under there. I mean, now they're starting to they're trying to put in more programs where you put things that root deep and and other things, bringing pollinators. What they spray them, they fertilize them, and it's basically a desert the rest of the year. The only time there's food available is
When you look into a tree, would you say the hive opening is located at the top and they build their wax down, or the bottom and work their way up?
it can be both.
Is it?
The best, I got another picture coming up, but the best is when it's near the bottom. They do the best. The colony will live the longest in a tree or cavity when the opening's down low. Or some other way, like we saw the picture of that cutout with the vent pipe. That vent pipe starts out here, they travel down the pipe and then come back around. So that's important, because the entrance is different than where the colony's built the comb itself. There's another one. A tree came down on a shed, and it turns out they were in the wall. I still got this wall sitting in my yard. And the funny thing is, they never rebuilt them. A lot of the trees I have around my yard, I'll have swarms move into them, move out of them. They never rebuilt them that, and I don't know why. I've got to take it apart one day. It's been sitting there for about 40 years now. Some of the other things I learned were been shown by other beekeepers in the past. So in here, we've got the fallen tree. It was cut down. The tree broke right there. There's still bees up in here, and obviously there's a bunch of bees on the ground here. And that comb was sitting just like that. Now what happened was, the queen was up here. And these bees are still down here protecting the brood. The first job is to blanket their brood to keep it warm. And that's what they were doing. So it ended up being a natural split. It sat there for about 3 or 4 days before I was able to get out there and rescue the bees in this case. And you can see that comb sitting like that, horizontal, is they've already started queen cells down there. And there's little larvae in there. You can see one right there hanging, but then the rest of them do have larvae in it. And the rest of these have been cleaned out because they can't survive. The larvae can't produce brood other than that slight angle of the vertical comb.
So I just had a question about, so the queen is there, the brood is here, so that protecting the brood is stronger instinct or whatever you call it than following the queen. Is that what you were saying?
Both, yeah.
Both,
So half of them, they naturally split. Half of them stayed there and half of them stayed with the queen.
Okay,
And it's probably mostly nurse bees down here
Mhm.
because they don't fly and they're not gonna go back.
We're just doing their job.
They're just doing their job.
Yeah.
Where the other ones, 4 days ago, that tree was up, the nest was way up there. So, the foragers probably leave here and go back up there and say, what the heck's going on?
Right,
Everybody
right.
go. And then they eventually worked their way down. Maybe they've come to where the brood is because they smelled that first, or maybe they went to where the queen was.
Mhm.
But obviously, that's not on me. So there's other things they contend with regularly. So that's called the Hopkins method. So you can actually, it's a very easy way to breed queen bees. You just cut out a piece of comb where there's eggs and you fasten it upwards. I've seen where people take an empty frame and just zip tie a piece of comb to it sideways, and it worked great. Propolis is a big one. Propolis is huge in a beehive. It's an 1.25 inch hole, I think. And you can clearly see how they can close things right down and make it exactly the way they want it. This is actually what I call my vacuum box. My cutouts, I use a empty box on the bottom, a super, and then a lid where I plug my shop vac into. And it's the way it's set up. I've used maybe less than 1% of the bees come through the vacuum. And I've never lost a queen. But then I'll set it out in the yard. They'll build comb in the super, and then they'll fill the bottom with comb. You'll see that someplace in here. But they'll close that right up. They'll make it their own. I see a lot of this in a hive, and this is at the entrance. They don't like to have anything by their entrance. They just don't. In our hives, and I assume mostly everybody has Langstroth's outside here, they make a slatted bottom board, or slatted bottom rack, slatted rack to the bottom, whatever you wanna call it, to kinda, they say it shades the bees and gives them more place to sit on the bottom of the hive. What it does is it gets their comb away from their entrance, and they have more room to move around in the front. They always want more room. They always want someplace to travel. I call it the bee tunnel. I have a bee tunnel full of propolis. And Marla Spitic, I think is her name, has done a lot of research. There's a I think it's Oregon, there's a bee company called, that makes propola hives, and they basically rough them up inside. There's a lot of things going on now about trying to get the bees to produce more propolis, because they recognize it's an important thing. But none of the things they do so far has been enough to promote better colony health.
Can I just ask you, I'm not sure what we were looking at that propolis picture.
So this would be, this section here is the piece of a tree,
Oh,
okay?
okay.
And over here is too, so it's just like
Oh, I see.
a hole going into a tree.
Okay, I thought it was a Langstroth, okay.
Yeah. So you can see that they have built comb there, but they've also filled it with a massive amount of propolis. Same thing with the front over here, massive amount of propolis. And in, you know, in beekeeping, we want to minimize the propolis production because we don't want them to glue everything together. We want a clean hive. We don't want this stuff in there because we want to extract honey. We don't want a mess. So it's really a sterile environment in most of our hives. And I like to look at it like I mentioned the almond groves earlier, like a forest. That is not a forest. That's a desert. You want to see a forest, you see trees, you see, you know, all sorts of wildlife, you see shrubs on the ground, you see dirt, you see trees that have fallen over, you see roots ripped up. I mean, there's so much more abundance and diversity in life inside of a forest. And it's an ecosystem. The beehive itself needs to be an ecosystem. Wax moths, hive beetles. It's what happens when somebody poisons a hive. And it's obviously some lath and plaster back there, so we can see. Here's the bottom of one of my, which I just mentioned, empty vacuum boxes where I would put the super on top. This is what they build underneath. And typically they get recycled and I take that off and melt it down. But they also change their comb relative to different things. There's that wall right there. So, the newest thing, so here's what the question was about where the height of they do great in this one. I've got several of them like this. And the entrance is near the bottom. Most of the colony is up higher. So this is the idea, the new idea. They say it's a new idea of the condensing hive. It's been around a long time. Is it Ware hive or Ware hive, where they're the narrow, tall ones with the natural comb inside? In the beginning, those were condensing hives, except it wasn't called condensing hive. Condensing hive is a new term, and now we're saying, you know, our industrial beekeepers have been saying, ventilation, the more ventilation we have, the more honey production we have, the more bees are going to do their job. Now they're saying they need no ventilation, the bees can do the ventilation on their own, the bees know what they're doing. Surprise, they do. They've been around a lot longer than us, and they know how to do what they have to do, and they survive better without our intervention. Another thing about the new idea, the condensing hive, is the wall thickness. We look at the tree and we see, oh, they've got 4 inches of wood there, that's like an R9 or R13 or something. Is where our 3/4 inch is like 0.7. Don't take my numbers, I'm just guessing. It's definitely more insulation by the wood. There's more to it than that. There's so much more to it than that. Entrance location, they like low. And of course, there is, as we saw in the split tree, there is this debris pit down here. They need that too. That's part of the ecosystem of the hive. We've got things living down there like bugs, larvae of other things. We've got hive beetles, we've got wax moth. They're all in there. They all live together. And it's important that they live together. Ventilation. Bees do their own ventilation. Ceiling insulation. Now, that's important on our hives. We should do that too. Put a lot of insulation on the roof. Talking about the condensing hive. If we think about winter, we think about, well, most of you know about the single pane glass where, Jack Frost used to come in, and we don't get to see those pretty sights anymore because we've got double pane windows. But ceiling insulation is important because instead of condensing it on the ceiling and raining down on the bees, it condenses on the wall and runs down into the bottom of the hive, feeding that debris pit in the bottom.
Do you think the ceiling insulation is good year-round or just for the winter?
Year-round, absolutely year-round. So, along with that, that question, bees set up their hive all summer long to live the winter. What do we do? What are we told to do? We're told to wrap our hives. We're told to reduce the entrances, and a few other things, put on like a quilt board on top or something else. That messes the bees up. It really does. The bees spent so much time all summer long getting things, they said, this is the place we're living, this is the conditions we have to deal with, we have to build this way, we have to store our stuff this way, and be prepared for winter in this way, and then all of a sudden, all the conditions change. All suddenly it's wrapped, suddenly it's hotter in there, suddenly we got insulation on the top, suddenly the ventilation we were using is all wrong because our entrances have been changed. So it's important to set your hive up for winter, and then let it, sit there from at least August, and don't touch the setup until next spring.
Okay, would you, like the blanket box?
Yep.
You said we could keep that on during the summer also?
Absolutely.
Really? Okay, because this is the first year that we use the blanket box in the wintertime, and we use the blankets around the hives, and all our hives survive. And I thought the blanket box was terrific.
They look great.
Okay, okay, great.
Yeah, lots of insulation up there.
Yeah, so it probably keeps it cooler.
It keeps it cooler, so just like
In
we
the
got,
summer?
we put insulation in our houses,
Yeah.
same deal. We don't take our insulation out in the summer, do we?
Right.
You know?
Right,
It keeps it cooler in the summer and keeps it warmer in the winter.
okay.
I've seen guys, it hit me when I was in school, I see guys around volcanoes, and they're all dressed in these winter coats. Like, man, it's 100 degrees at a volcano. Like, yeah, well, those winter coats keep out the heat.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow,
Same thing with the insulation.
yeah.
Propolis envelope. So the propolis envelope is that container of propolis. They need the more place they have it, and that's what the whole deal with the new propolis hives and roughing up the inside of the boxes is to make the bees produce a propolis envelope. That is part of your immune system. They need that because it's all the antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, all that stuff. And they need that, they need to walk through it, they need, they're out there, it's their feet that touch the environment and bring back the stuff. They need to walk across it. That's why we see all that, and that's why the bee tunnel is important for the health of the colony. Comb layout. Again, they want to have it good and straight. The debris pit, the bottom, HVAC. Oh yeah, I put that in there because I wanted about the insulation. So if you look at a tree, there's something different about a tree that nobody talks about, except your maple tree producers out here, maple syrup producers. You're gonna go out, you're gonna see that the snow melts around the base of the tree first. You know, you still got 2 feet of snow on the ground, but around the tree, you see the dirt. That's because the sap is coming up, bringing the warmth from the ground and warming up the colony. Warming up the tree, and it warms up the cavity that the bees are living in. So there's more to a tree, it's a living environment. So it's an ecosystem that not only does that, but that debris bit on the bottom, you got rotting material in there. When that water condenses and fills that and wets that debris, it's the ground warms up, the sap produces heat, warms up that debris pit. That debris pit is gonna start to rot, you're gonna have compost, it's gonna produce more heat, it's gonna warm up the colony in the spring. They use less energy to heat the hive, and they need less honey because to feed their young. So like this time of year, we gotta feed the bees typically because they're producing, and they also have to keep warm. They really don't have to do as much here. It's just so much better. That's why they live in people's houses too, because there's a lot of heat coming from there.
Bill, would you say it's beneficial then to have screened bottom boards and keep them open year round, or keep them closed?
Open. It's coming up. I got all the answers in the end here. Any questions so far? Since this is a blank screen, I don't know why.
Hey, how much foul brood are you finding in the, zero?
Zero.
Remarkable.
Zero. And you're, in the cutouts you're saying?
Yeah, American foul brood, yeah.
There's no foul brood in there, there's no deformed wing virus, there's no sac brood, and I document and take pictures, and I look at every square inch of comb.
Are there mites? There's gotta be mites.
There are mites, there's lots of mites,
But nothing,
but none of the diseases show themselves. So this is something interesting that I found in these. So, if the hive loses queen, obviously it's going to produce a new queen. We know this. During swarming, we know the bees, if we're not in there soon enough, they produce a whole bunch of queens. The recommendation is to knock down most of those queen cells because they're going to kill each other anyway. And they've got what? They've got one shot, right, to make a new queen. So we all hear, one shot to make a new queen. You gotta be in there, you gotta make sure that queen's made it back. You have to make sure that she's laying eggs, or you have to requeen, or you have to add more brood, or you have to do something to fix the situation. The fact is, they make another one. Now in our colonies, we intervene in the natural process. The natural process is actually the queen lays an egg in a queen cup. They start to produce a new queen, and then she'll come around and lay another egg in a queen cup. So if you look at this thing here, we've got a mature queen cell. It's you can almost see where they started to chew away at the bottom here. We've got ones that are a little bit younger, and we've got one that's completely open still. Same case over here. We've got one up here that's just starting to develop, and a couple here that are ready to go. So when a queen pipes and she emerges, she starts to pipe to find all the other live queens, and she'll kill them in their cells. So if this one comes out, she's gonna kill this one. But you know what? This one here, it's not piping. She's not gonna kill it. She only kills the ones that are viable at the time. So she'll go out, she'll try to get mated, if, you know, she gets eaten by an airplane, or hit by an airplane, or eaten by a bird, or whatever else, and, you know, it doesn't make it back, they've got another one. And that is consistent across the board in all feral colonies. And we're told this, we have to do so much more work when we're managing hives. So this, I was gonna illustrate it, but maybe I can talk my way through it. So we've got a life cycle of a bee itself. We know how many days it takes to raise a bee, we know what it does in its lifetime, we know all its jobs. We've got a life cycle of a colony. We've got a life cycle where we know that it swarms, produces new queens, does its own splitting, we can split it, and bees reproduce by colony size. But there's also a life cycle of the hive itself. There is, they want to come in, they build the comb, they live there for a year or two, the bees will move out, there will be a cleaning problem, a re-queening issue where, they'll end up with the laying workers and stuff. That still does happen in the wild colony. But the fact they move those wild colonies in small things, Tom Seeley's talking about small hives recently. We want small hives and let them swarm. And it is important. That swarm will take away a bunch of the mites. There will be a brood break, which also reduces mite load. And then they will live someplace else and start a new colony and live on new comb in a new place where they're going to be a lot healthier. Where the old hive, after it's used so much, that wax absorbs all the environmental toxins. You end up with all kinds of things, especially if you're treating, you end up with a lot of chemicals in there, and they don't want anything to do with it. They want it out of there because it is detriment to their immune system. So basically what happens is if you have one hive location, you'll have, let's say, 3 more out there. This colony will split once, twice, maybe 3 times and fill up 1, 2, or 3 of those locations. This colony will then die. Or the hive will abandon ship and go someplace else. They'll abscond. And so what will happen in that hive is all that wax will get recycled. Things will come in, wax moths will chew it down. Other things will rob out what's left there, and it will be completely cleaned up. They will clean the cavity out until like a 1/4 inch of the wax, or even more, and all that stuff will fall to the debris pit at the bottom of the colony, bottom of the hive. Nice. We hate this stuff. It's disgusting.
Wax moths, right?
Those are small hive beetles.
Oh.
These are wax moths. And, they bring all this in here. Wax moth in a tree, we've seen it all on frames or in our boxes where the wax moths will burrow into the wood and have like these little crescents and little divots and things in the wood, and it destroys our stuff. And we don't want wax moths because they do that. However, in a place like this, they knock down all that. They got a lot of silk in there, other fibers that they do, all the poop they put in there, and it just creates a healthy layer of debris in the bottom where it does. It warms them up in the spring where it reheats the hive. And here's another one. It's really gross. I was deciding if I should put that in there or not. We don't want that, but we do want that. So what ends up happening is, so they'll move from this spot over to that spot, and that spot. So they've got multiple chances to survive. Their genetics, their whoever they are, that family of bees. If they don't survive here, they will survive over there, or they will survive back there. And if they survive over there, but not those other spots, that colony next year will divide and split and fill up these other locations. So a colony of bees doesn't live in one spot. It lives in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different places. And they're all family, and they all drift, and they all visit each other in a sense. The drone bees do. That's part of my idea about this intelligent design, is we think drone bees are there just to mate with a queen. That's their only job, and it's repeated over and over and over again. And we know every new advancement in technology, every new advancement in intelligence and things that we've come to discover is a debunking of last year's truth,
Hmm.
you know? So, truth doesn't really mean anything unless what it is at the moment, and it will always change, and I believe we're gonna find more out about drone bees. I think there's a communication that goes on among different colonies, and that's why we do see them. Research shows them moving into other hives, they're welcome everywhere. I think they tell stories and explain what we're gonna do next and make plans with everybody. I think there's much more to it.
Well, I think part of it is bees can't read. And I don't mean that to be funny, but, well, I do mean to be funny. People say that they throw the drones out. And I was in a hive 2 days ago and saw drones already. And, you know, some of them, they hang out through the whole winter in certain hives. Other ones, they throw the larvae out first frost of the year. And it's funny that just the behavior of different hives. And so there's no, you know, set rules. And I think that's one of the things you see with hives.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. I always say, don't read the books,
Yeah.
read your bees.
Yeah.
Here we've got a compass. The bees like to produce their comb north to south, all the time. And when I go into these colonies, if the comb is not north to south, the bees are usually not doing well. The colony's weak, or there's just no bees. The comb isn't really built out, and they'll move if they do it wrong. I've got tons of pictures like this. So we get cross comb in our hives. I got ripped a new one, I guess. When I mentioned this before, what do we do with cross comb? And the answer is always, well, your frames aren't close enough together. That's always the answer. You got to scrape it off and make sure your frames are closer together. I say, no, yeah, go ahead, scrape it off, then turn your hive in the direction that the combs, they're building their combs, because that's the way they want to build their combs. They navigate by they've got ferrite in their head, they navigate by magnetic north and south. And the fact is, not every place on the planet is north and south magnetically. We've got water that runs through the ground that changes the magnetic direction. And we've got stronger and weaker magnetic areas in the planet. Location. There it is. So we've all done this little experiment where you put the metal shavings on the magnet and see those nice pictures. Planet's the same way. Which brings me to dowsing. So I make these out of coat hangers. The older coat hangers are better because there's more metal in them than there are in the newer coat hangers. But if you go along here, and I walked around here earlier, this doesn't work in the basement, but it does pick up the water line. There's a water line that runs this way, and if I go, let's see if I can do it from this way. Get back far enough where it won't pick up.
Oh, brother, that's cool.
So there's the water line right there. You come back this way, and
You're not doing that.
no.
Just so you know, those do definitely work for those that are skeptical, like you're like questioning.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
definitely work. I've seen them and used them on construction projects forever.
Right.
They will find pipes in the ground that have something running in them, electricity or water, or they do find stuff. I can
Yeah, the iron
100% tell you.
actually picks up magnetic, and when you have a water pipe, you got water running through it, water will orient itself magnetically in one direction, and that's why it picks up water. Same thing with electrical. But anybody wants to try them afterwards, I'll show you how it's done. Bees want to be on a strong magnetic line, or if there's water, underground water, they'll build over the water. So we've got, in this one house, there was 5 colonies. There was one at each corner, and then one in the middle in the front. So this is the side of the house, this is the back corner, this is the front corner. And you can see the bees there. Yep. And you probably can't hear it. But you see where they cross there. And you look up, and there they are. every time. I had, then I'll walk back a little further and I'll do it again. And usually on either side, with strong spot crosses, weaker spot it comes apart. But, I had this woman come over to my house. She's, Native American. She's got crystals and does different things and can feel the environment and feel the energies of the earth, yes. And I didn't tell her anything about my yard. She came in and says, oh, the bees like it over here. She says, oh, this spot was a negative area, but you've planted nut trees. Nut trees always increase the energy in the area. There's a new face. But over there, that's a really negative area. The bees aren't gonna like it over there. And I didn't tell her anything about my yard, but what she knew was spot on. This area, my bees produced well. They did great, they survived. Over there, they didn't do so well, but they were doing better and better and better as the years went by. And over there, I couldn't get my bees to survive for nothing, and they were always the angry bees. You know, always, I could put a good hive over here and put it over there, and they'd be nasty to me, and then they wouldn't survive or they'd abscond. There's something to do with the energy of the earth, and a lot of it I've found. I know there's more to it than dowsing, but the colonies I find, and I did this for 2 years straight. First thing I do is walk on somebody's property with the dowsing rods and line up and make little drawings of where these energy lines were, and the bees were always on the lines, every single time. So now when I place hives or I go to somebody's yard to help them place their hives in their yard, bring the dowsing rods.
So what are you looking for when you're using them?
And wherever they cross over.
That's where you put the bees.
Yeah, we should have put a beehive right here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I have a question, I don't know if this is the right time to ask you, but suppose my hives are this way, okay,
Yep.
and they're cross-combing this way, can I just simply go like that? Or what do I have to do it slowly?
Just turn it.
Just turn it?
Yeah, just turn it. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about what you were saying, because that looks like that's where they wanna build the comb, so let them, right?
Right.
Right,
Right. They know what they're doing.
yeah.
And it's a cool picture, because what do bees always draw comb down, right? They draw comb up too when they got space. Wait, what was that question? What can we do? No, okay. Oh, Peppa, I'm here already. I went faster than I thought.
You'll have lots of questions.
That's fine.
Mhm.
So. Located on magnetic lines. We just talked about that. I don't have to cover that again. Open to the ground. Question was about screen bottom boards. So here's what I do. I make a hive stand, 4x4s, one on each corner, and then wood, solid wood on the outside. So it's a column straight to the ground. And what I do on the bottom is I put hardware cloth, because I don't want mice coming up in there and destroying stuff. So I put hardware cloth on the bottom. It's just a box, same size as a hive. Hardware cloth, and then you can either put hardware cloth on top. What I do is a slatted rack, but I make my own slatted rack, so it's very narrow, just so the bees can squeeze through there, because if it's any bigger, what they're gonna do is they're gonna build underneath it. You don't want that.
Do you have a picture of what you're talking about?
Maybe. There's half a picture coming up.
Okay.
And that's the trash pit, debris pit, natural floor. They need that underneath where the ground temperature can warm them. They need that spot where all that stuff can fall. I mean, typically what do we do? We put sticky boards in there, pull out all the junk, and scrape the bottom board, and clean it off, and it's just not the way the bees wanna have it. I mean, you can do it. I mean, obviously the beekeepers, the commercial guys and the industrial beekeepers, sterile hives, force the bees, turn them into slaves, do what you want with them to produce a lot of honey. Something else that's always pushed is the east entrance. So the sun comes up, warms the front of the hive or wherever, the light comes in, and they know when the sun comes up. They don't need to see the light. but they like an east entrance. Along with the east entrance, if we take our normal plank straw hive, face it towards the east, suddenly our comb is going west to east.
That's what I'm just thinking, right, so how do you
Yeah.
manage that?
So, I don't use a standard bottom board. I don't use a bottom board at all. I use that box that's open to the ground. And I drill an 1.5-inch hole on the side. And there is a picture of that. Debris frame. This is how I promote the bee tunnel. So I call this the debris frame. It's just obviously hardware cloth, kind of clamshell down there. And what I do is I take stuff like this here. Mulch, sticks, this is some brass that I cut up. And basically, I thought I'd make it while I was here, but I don't want to make a mess either. So basically, I fill this like this, right? Fill it right up. You know, not too tight, but enough where the bees can kind of crawl in through here. They'll propolize this whole thing. What I'll do is I'll just throw a couple of zip ties in there to hold this together. But what ends up happening is they'll propolize this whole thing. And like that picture we saw of that mound of propolis, this whole thing will turn into that. And what happens first is if I pack it real tight and I put it towards the outside, because now this is north-south here, right? And my entrance is over here with that 1.5-inch hole. So I got an 1.5-inch hole on the side of this. The bees are forced now to come through this or go underneath or over top or wherever else to get to the foundation in the comb where they're going to be living and building. So now everything that's on their feet gets killed and absorbed by the propolis. And the tunnel they walk through to get through it. Eventually they'll make little holes through this and move things around, and they'll almost come, different ways through this.
How much does the inspector hate you?
We get along pretty well.
Okay.
All the inspectors really look for is foul brood. They want to make sure you don't have foul brood, and they want to make sure I'm not traveling with foul brood either. There's a lot involved in sterilizing equipment. I'm moving stuff around. I wash my bee suit regularly. So, I mean, it's just different. You go to a different yard, you want to clean stuff before you go to the next yard. It's a big part of best practices or whatever. But as long as I'm clean, I don't move things and spread disease is fine. So the debris frame.
I have one quick question. When you're setting up your colonies, when you do the cross, do you put one hive or do you put multiple? I know you and I talked earlier, but are you putting 10 there, 20 there, or are you spacing them out like we talked about?
I'll put them right in a row. I don't care. If it's a good area, you can pack them right together.
I'm just curious your method.
Yeah. So what I've taken to is I've got old pools, swimming pools, and they got that aluminum wrap around the outside, or steel wrap. And so when people take down old pools, they'll just roll this stuff up. It's heavy gauge, usually galvanized, so it not supposed to rust, but it does. I just roll that on the ground and set my hives right on top of that. Now, and this stuff builds up in the bottom, and it's not really open to the dirt, so we don't have anything digging up through, and the weeds don't grow up around it, so. But I don't know how well that's gonna work. We'll see. This sun might cause a problem, overheating, who knows what. That's what I've started doing. But anyway, all these years has been just right next to each other, just enough so I can walk between each one. Line them right up. Heavy top insulation, I make my own top covers, so I don't have to weight them down or strap them down or anything. I make a piece of plywood, and then an inch or two of foam insulation, and then another piece of plywood, and then just wrap them with aluminum. So they're very heavy, and they're well insulated, and they get it all year long. Always insulated. I mentioned that earlier. All new, the best survival rate is new colonies. So in August is about when you make new colonies. Split the, raise queens, do splits, all new colonies. And then I don't touch them. And I let them get their own food. The big thing you hear is you gotta take out the dark honey. The dark honey produces ash, it backs up their gut, and then they wouldn't be making it if they didn't want it. It wouldn't be, I'd go back to the intelligent designer. They need that darker honey in winter because it has more things. We take that away, we put in sugar syrup, and then what happens? Along with sugar syrup, we do the mite treatments, and then what happens? We get bad gut health in bees. So what do we got? What is that called? Pro-DFM? You get the probiotics for the bee gut health, because you want better bee gut health. Well, you just destroyed it with all the mite treatments. You just destroyed it by taking away their honey and feeding them sugar syrup. I mean, it's just this, sugar does the same thing to us as it does to bees. It just destroys our ability to digest and absorb nutrients, which just makes us hungrier, right? You eat sugar, you get hungry, you want more sugar. Well, you eat the right stuff, and you're not hungry, and your body can live off of proper nutrition. Same thing with the bees. I think the mite treatment people produce, they met with the people who produce the probiotics for the bees and the other essential oils and things. We're going to sell you one thing to make you sick, kind of like pharmaceutical people. We'll sell you one thing to make you sick, and then we'll give you something else to make you better. Well, what if we don't do that at the beginning? Leave the bees with the food that they need. Leave them extra honey. A lot of people get, you can get 50, 100, 120 pounds of honey off a hive. I get about 27 to 35 pounds of honey off a hive. But I don't have to spend money on bees every year either. So, strictly economic, you can take all the honey, let the bees die, or you can buy new bees, or you can leave some of the honey and not have to buy new bees. No touching after September, yeah. The bees set, like I said earlier, the bees set up what they're gonna do. They get ready for winter, and anything we do messes that up. And it makes them work harder, it makes them use more of their stores, it makes them stress more, and anxiety shortens life.
That's when we pull all the honey, September, October.
What's that?
That's when the fall honey gets pulled.
I know.
No touching.
Yeah. So, I went to grab a debris frame. I thought this was a dead out. So I took this picture 2 days ago, which is why I brought the new debris frame put together. You can see there on either side, there's one on this side, and there are holes right there. The entrance is on this side. I also have one on this side too. So I put 2 of them in my hive. And they get loaded with propolis. Like I said, I thought this one was a dead out.
So that's what you showed us on the table there.
Right,
So you set those on the left and the right side,
that's right there.
and what do those do?
That gives them a place for propolis.
Right,
It's,
Welcome back.
welcome mat, it'll wet their feet, yeah, perfect.
Is this on the other side of that hole, on the
Right.
white one?
So if
Okay.
you look in that hole, you're gonna see the side of this.
Okay,
So this is one of my stands I use. And you can see down there straight to the ground. This one is an older one. I had different ideas about turning things sideways and things. So I think you can see through the other side, because this isn't really put together right. And this is a vacuum box. This is just and the other side, you're gonna see a hole right there where my vacuum gets plugged into, and that's that hole we saw earlier was all propolized and a little bee sticking out. So that's on the other side of this.
And do you normally put hardwood cloth over that opening so mice don't get in, or right there?
I usually put it down at the bottom where it sits on the dirt.
Oh,
So this is the wrong size for this size box.
Okay.
This was designed for something else.
okay.
Is that your typical hive layout then?
Yes. I mean, I still got ones with the bottom entrance through the long ways. I got a bunch of hives, so. I haven't
Well-
converted all of them yet.
Well, typically the hole's on the other side though, like on the, this right picture on the right, it's on the bottom right, down there.
Right here.
And you have it on the left side.
Right, so this would have been, so if I had a bottom board on this, the entrance would have been right here.
Right.
So the column is going this direction, and the entrance is on the side. So this is pointing east, this side is pointing north. Actually, it's pointing south. No,
Oh, yeah, right.
you're right. I don't know.
So what's below the blue tape on the photo on the left?
This one here,
Yeah,
that's the vacuum box. That's part of what I use for my cutouts. So it's just an empty box. There's probably a lot of comb in there now. But otherwise, it's just an empty box. And it's got a solid bottom too.
Oh.
So that's got a solid bottom in this one.
I didn't get that, cause I was saying, I think mice would still get in there, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was solid.
So this is a solid, closed-in box. And then, again, you get the debris frames, and these things work great. Always insulation in the top. I had this insulation. For some reason, I had this cover in there. And I've been seeing a lot of my bees flying around. This one, there was no movement. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just take that apart and bring in pieces. Surprise. It works. It does work. That's it. So if you take a picture of that, I don't know if you can see the whole thing right there. It's a YouTube link. On that is that's a presentation I did on modifying a Langstroth hive to what we just talked about.
Hey, could you just go back one second to that last one? Thanks.
Yeah, where's my card? That one card has all the information on it too. So yeah, you gotta save the link because that's part 2 of a video. So you can watch part 1 and there's a couple other on my YouTube channel. And I'm not monetized, so you're not gonna see all the advertisements that other people do.
Bill, do you feed geese during winter or no?
No, I don't. Like I said, I get less honey because I leave more honey for the bees.
Yeah.
And in the spring, the extra honey I make splits with. So honey is a nice bonus. I'm not a honey producer. But I still make several thousand pounds a year.
So what type of splits are you doing in August then? Are you just, walk away split or?
No, I raise queens and I select frames, so I might split one colony like 4 or 5 ways. And I just put a couple queen cells in each one, and I make them up in nuke boxes, so that,
And they're able to build up enough to make it through the winter?
every time. Yeah. Sometimes I'll leave them in nuke boxes, cardboard nuke boxes, and they survive the winter in those.
Yes.
Do you wrap them?
No?
You just leave them in the box?
Yeah. I don't recommend it.
I
I recommend
just can't
insulation on the
fathom
top.
them surviving a winter, especially like our winter, it was so cold, all of January and February. You know?
They do. I will change the size of my hives based on the colony of bees. So if we've only got 2 or 3 frames of bees, that's for a 5-frame nuke. If we've got 10 frames of bees, it's a single bee, And I try not to force my bees into a certain way of being. Like, a lot of people say, okay, now, the new fad is single deeps. All my bees have to go into a single deep for winter, because that's what's working. You know, it's, each colony has its own personality, its own, number that it has to maintain in order to survive. Some can do in smaller groups, some need a larger group. You know, some go in the winter with more, you know, the queen will produce more, it's all based on the colony. Again, it's, don't read the books, don't watch the videos, don't listen to anybody else, listen to your bees. It's very important, pay attention to what's going on in there.
What is usually your hive loss per year?
About 20%. Last year was great, last year was only about 10%.
Oh, no, last year for me was, yeah,
Amazing for most people.
yeah.
This year
because-
apparently is gonna be worse.
Well, obviously. It was too cold. This year it's like too many days where it was just too cold.
See, that's the part, the bees don't get killed from cold.
Huh?
They get killed from starvation, they get killed from diseases. The cold actually is good for the bees, consistent, continuous cold, because they slow down, they don't eat as much, they just are there.
Yeah, Mike Palmer has a great video where he shows his hives buried in snow, and they all make it through the winter because they're
Really?
properly.
The snow's great for insulation, I love it when it snows, because I don't have to heat my house as much. It costs less to heat my house when there's a lot of snow. Yeah, it's cold, but, yeah, snow's great. But the consistent cold too, consistent cold is important. Because it's when it fluctuates, the bees will come out of their cluster. They'll start milling about, they'll get their, you know, they'll start using more
Their
energy,
metabolic rate takes off, yeah.
and they'll use more honey, and then it gets cold, and they have to get back in that, and it takes energy an organization to be able to get that cluster tight enough again. So it's the hot temperatures in the day and the cold temperatures at night that really cause problems and be havoc. But cold,
Did you
consistent cold is good.
gradually become a natural beekeeper, or did you start off treating and then you
I've
you never?
never
You
treated.
never did?
I've thought about it, I've talked about it, I've bought the stuff to do it, and I don't know, something about it is just, it's not built into me. I don't take medicine either from the doctor, so.
It's just, I mean, it's just the chemicals for you regardless.
Yeah.
Even the lesser of
The organics, like,
Well,
the organic vapors and stuff like that, it's still not.
well,
it's-
because what I do is, I have a special heating box that I put on for 3 hours.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just heat, because Randy Oliver wrote a couple articles in bee culture, and I thought that was cool. I'm not Bob the Builder, so I didn't build this one is not like a heating element that you put in the entrance of the hive, and then it heats the hive that way. This is where you put it on top, and then I got a battery, and then I make sure that if it's gonna rain, there's no water in.
How hot does it get it in
107 degrees,
there? Oh, okay.
and then it's only done for 3 hours, but.
Yes, it's supposed to kill the mites.
And
Mites
it
die.
kills, because the mites can't handle the heat,
Right,
as the bees can. I mean, there's a certain limit, there's a limit for everybody, right?
right.
Yeah.
But the mites, they found out that mites can't handle it as well as the bees, and they found a temperature and stuff.
Yep.
I mean,
I've seen
that's what I use. I used to use oxalic acid and all that other stuff, but I only have 25 hives, so I can go through that in a couple weeks and I'm done.
Right, yeah, that's a great idea. They also make those clear domes that go over it, that the sun is supposed to heat it like a greenhouse.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
So there's a lot of different things that they do to heat a hive,
Yeah.
and apparently it works.
Oh, no, that's the only, because I'm like you, where let natural chemicals, okay, they're in the hive, right?
Yep.
And that's what propyl is it's a chemical,
Yep.
but it's natural.
Right, and it's not concentrated, like your oxalic acid, you say, oh, you find it in rhubarb leaves, yeah, but you don't find it in such a concentration where you gotta wear a mask when you're cutting up your rhubarb for your pie.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
that'd be something else.
yeah.
But, so the low dose low chemical, or low, the natural stuff. But even rhubarb, putting it in there for your oxalic acid doesn't work, it just causes more work for the bees.
I know someone might have other questions, but I just wanted to say, this has been interesting because, I haven't heard about a lot of this stuff, or some of this stuff here. And, it's making me think and rethink, because I own, most of my hives are the Turkish beehive, which is a plastic insulated hive, which I don't have to really do anything, because I've got two bottom boxes. It comes with an entry reducer that I can just open up and move the bees wherever I want. It's got the, nice thick lid with feeders, which I don't use the feeders really. And then it's got, do you use queen excluders? That's another question.
No,
That's right.
I use them in queen rearing,
Aha.
just so I don't get a rogue queen come into one of my hives and destroy all my work.
Okay.
So, yeah, to protect my queen rearing operation, I use queen excluders.
Yeah.
But as far as, for honey production, no. If I get a little bit of brood on a frame, I just don't extract that frame.
Gotcha.
And typically, I don't take full boxes either. I'll go out and take individual frames out of the boxes and examine each one before I,
Yeah.
so.
Well, anyway, thanks. I appreciate it.
Bill, brand new to beekeeping. What do you do about wasps? Where we're gonna have our hives, we're doing AZ hives, and we saw a ground nest last year. We're concerned about, one, how to get rid of it, or two, what we should be.
Ground nest won't be back in the same spot next year,
Okay,
so you don't have to worry about that one.
okay.
But, I don't worry about them. There's never enough to decimate a colony. Apparently, the new murder hornets or whatever, if they come out in our area, someone's at my door. So yeah, I don't worry about wasps. They don't take out a strong colony. If you've got a weak colony, well, it's weak, it's gonna die anyway.
Okay.
So it's part of one of the treatment-free aspects of natural beekeeping is if they're gonna be taken out by somebody else, predator, it's because the colony wasn't strong enough to begin with.
Do you intervene with, queens that are a certain age? You take out an older queen and put in a new one, or do you just let them figure it out themselves?
When I do my splits, the old hives, I leave them with the old queen,
Yeah,
and they become honey-producing colonies. And I'll use the brood and stuff out of them to fix any other problems in other ones if I have to, or bolster up other hives from that colony. And sometimes they'll make it through the winter, a lot of times they don't. Those are where the losses come in. So another part of that is if they're a 2-year queen, I'll put them in a nuke, and people get overwintered nukes, and they buy nukes from me. So, and then they also get all the instructions about how to split it, and so they can have extra bees from a single nuke. And it's always splitting is always important. They say start out with 2 hives, right? So 2 hives is the best, because if you see one growing big or the other one's growing small, you know there's something going on. Or if you only have 1 hive and it's not doing well, you don't really know it. 2 hives is always good. I say 5 hives. 5 hives, because you're gonna wanna split that a couple times. You're gonna want room because you're gonna catch a swarm, and half of those, or part of those are not gonna survive the winter anyway. So if we only got 2, and it's good to start out with 2 in the spring, but end up with 5 in the fall. And then next spring you have bees that you can split again and continue on. 5 is like 10. Right. I ended up with 120 once, and that was just too much. I think I got about 40 now. 40 to 60 is where I about stay.
So if you're starting out with a brand new hive, standard bottom board, you recommend the opening to be north or south
I
instead of
recommend,
east?
Yeah,
Because my wind is,
so, I would say south.
with the opening to the south.
Yep, and then the comb itself is north-south also.
Right.
And I think that's the most important part, is north-south.
And with my weather coming from the west-southwest, with that opening that way, it's still gonna be all right.
Yeah, the bees don't care. Yeah, they'll really adjust, they adjust to anything, except open-air hives, and they just don't make it very anyway. Yeah.
Recommendations in replacing comb after a couple of years.
Yeah, I rotate out my comb. So anything that's survived in it for 3 years, I'll end up getting all the bees out and replacing everything. New comb is better, every time. Again, it's because it does, the wax is an organic compound and it absorbs, which are most of the pesticides and herbicides in the environment are organic, so it's kind of like a sponge. The wax is a sponge for environmental toxins, which is why, a lot of the reason why I turned black. That and the cocoons, but it absorbs all that stuff. It's part of the immunity of the hive is that wax, which is why they'll abscond after a couple of years, and all the wax moths will come in and rip it all down so the bees can come back and rebuild the following season.
So all that wax from the old comb, you just throw it out?
No, I melt it down, I make candles and such.
Oh, so you use it just for candles and not for redoing frames?
No, I'll do that sometimes soon.
You don't get much wax anyway, I have found out, in really used comb that, you know, that's black and dark.
Right, because they squeeze out of all the comb. And what ends up being is mostly cocoons.
Right.
Because they don't remove the old cocoons, so another bee will be raised in there, and eventually, and some of the other research that has been gone on is small cell comb. So you want small cell foundation. They were thinking, well, the smaller cells, the wild colonies have smaller bees, have smaller cell size on their comb, so they're not getting as much problems from the mites. Well, the actual thing is yeah, the bees do well in a wild situation, but it's not because it's a small cell. The small cell is there because the bees have survived so long that they've laid egg after egg and raised young after young in that cell, which is
Right.
reduced the size because of the layer upon layer of cocoon.
Right.
So you could use that information to age a hive, a wild hive. You
Yes.
can happen to come upon it and say,
Yes.
yeah, this has been here for,
Yep.
not just based on size, which is what obviously.
Right,
was a box, you know,
typically you got
it's
real
interesting.
small cells up here, and if it's been recycled several times, a lot of times the wax moths don't take everything out. You'll end up with a few inches up here, or different spots around the outside, and you'll end up with very dark comb. It's almost like plastic. You could drive over it with a truck and it still survive, you know? And right next to brand new fresh comb.
What's your thoughts on torching inside of your boxes?
Doesn't do any good.
You haven't,
The idea is, well, some of it is for foul brood. Fire's not gonna really kill foul brood.
no, I'm
Just
not
a-
saying that, but for the,
sense.
for the health of the hive, do you find that the bees find it more susceptible to stay in there?
Are you saying torch a new box to give it like a charred feel on the inside?
Just to,
Or to clean
yes.
out a hive?
no, just, let's say you have boxes or let's say even a new one, and you just give it a quick torch,
Don't know.
I don't know?
I don't know. I've done it.
I've done it, and I was just
I've done it
wondering
thinking
what
I
your-
was gonna clean it out. It's easy to get some of that stuff off of there, but now I'm thinking they need more propolis.
Yeah.
That's my stance now. Is,
How about for like a trap, though, maybe that'd be, like lightning struck trees always seem to attract hives, I guess.
not in my experience.
No.
No. Yeah, lightning struck hives.
Or like lightning struck.
They don't come, lightning struck trees.
Yeah.
I've seen trees that have been struck with bees in them, and the bees don't come back. I wonder if that's what happened to the tree, or that wall that I have. Because that tree was struck by lightning that fell on it.
Oh,
I wonder if there's something about you know,
Is that oriented the way it was too? Like it didn't just randomly get flipped upside down so everything's pointing the wrong direction or something?
the wall?
Yeah.
No, it was right side up.
Okay.
So I've got a couple trees on my property itself that there was bees living in, and it's been years since they've been struck by lightning. I couldn't figure out why. I thought the neighbor kids came over and put dynamite in it. What's going on here? And I realized it was struck by lightning, and, which is 120 feet from my house, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
But, bees have not been back. It's been 6 years. So, but it's just my experience. I don't know what else it could
Could that be because the lightning opened up too large a entry in the side of the tree?
be. No,
Kind of similar to
that didn't
the one
happen.
slide you had?
It's gotta be something to do with the health of the tree, or,
Or maybe just the lightning itself, 1.21 gigawatts is, well, from Back to the Future, right?
8 miles an hour.
Yeah, we're- Well, no, I'm just saying that because both the lightning, that's a lot of energy
Right.
that's striking the tree, and maybe it modifies
It's just.
whatever.
The bees, like with the dowsing rod, the bees can feel different things in the earth.
Right.
The Native American woman I had at my house, she could feel different things in the earth, different energy patterns and levels and things. There's more to it than we
Yeah.
understand.
Right,
So,
right.
there's a lot more to it. And we'll be discovering things forever.
The bottom, interesting what you put your beehives on with the enclosed, bottom to keep it kind of warm. And you put a blanket under there, or, what did you put under there?
Hardware cloth. No,
Can you
that's-
just put like some leaves and stuff, or is that gonna?
No,
Dental hardware.
this stuff right here.
Hardware cloth.
That's just to keep the mice from coming up in.
Okay.
'Cause I don't
It's just
want mice-
it's like a screen, that's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just a metal galvanized screen to keep large critters out. I also have groundhogs and other things in my yard, that rats that cause a problem. So, but yeah, otherwise, they've done other things where they have a, top bar hive, long top bar hives, or canyon hive, or whatever you call them, where they've taken, straw, kind of like they use in a skep to weave a skep. They take that and put it on the bottom and then throw leaves on top, so there's a natural falling apart of that stuff, and then, because there's little bits of space in the straw, some of that stuff will drop out as it gets heavier, and then little critters crawl through it and it drops out of the hive, but it still has that natural trash pit or debris pit in the bottom of the hive. So they're doing it in other areas of the world. It's just, our laws say you gotta have a Langstroth hive. They don't say Langstroth hive, they say inspectable comb, movable comb. So, as long as I got enough inspectable comb in my hive, the inspector doesn't really say anything. Anything else? The other thing I can say is, I don't know where the bee jacket went. I got a bunch of bee jackets in my truck. I was selling them to make enough money to do my beekeeping school. I was gonna build a whole thing, and so now I charge $80 for a jacket, and they're designed after, they're similar to the sheriff jacket, which are $200 and some a piece. So I've got a bunch of those if anybody wants one.
I tried it on, it fits me great. It's actually similar size to the one that I bought locally. And it's the same size XL, it fit great, but he's got all kinds for you to try on. Try theirs on, not mine. I mean, nothing happened to mine, so, but I like it, and I think it's very durable, but if you're interested, Bill has them. I just bought this one.
So I've only got so much of an inventory left, so it's really,
There's a bell.
I keep saying I'm almost
What's
out,
that?
I'm almost out.
Yeah, it's like a bell. It's really cool, a bell. I mean, mine, I've got the hood on my, the round one on mine, but this one here, it actually, and maybe they all do that, but it actually pops out like this, and it's pretty cool. So, It's a nice jacket.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I tried buying some cheap one online and they don't fit, and this fits great. And I'm a 2X or an XL, and my jacket's an XL, and
You wash your jackets a lot? How do you wash them?
I take the hood off, I put the hood inside and zip it up. And then just throw it in the wash. I got like dye-free, scent-free, and stuff. And then hang it to dry it. And I'll wash mine once a week.
Take it cold water, otherwise you'll have.
Cold water.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, and I think a nice round of applause. You have a good presentation, I enjoyed it. And, you know, he's gonna be available for more questions and.
Everybody wants to try the dowsing rods and stuff.
I would like to try that, and also because animal.
Hey, how you doing? Oh wait, is this gonna be ending here, or somebody recording?
Bill, you gotta stop your recorder.
Here, how do you do that?
Your recorder.
I can hit power?
I get it.
Oh, okay.
That thing's old and broken and the buttons don't work. I just gotta remember to take it home.